Hey there, drone fans. Rick here again from Drone Valley. Today's clip's going to be a little bit of an interesting one because it's about a topic that I didn't want to talk about, I'd hoped to not have to talk about, and I've kind of stayed out of discussion for the last couple of weeks because I didn't want to add fuel to the fire over all of this hysteria about these mysterious drones flying over New Jersey. Now, I live in New Jersey. I fly in New Jersey pretty much every day, all over the state. I fly all over the country, but my home state of New Jersey, the Garden State, is a beautiful place to put a drone up. We've got tons of lakes and shoreline and forests and farms. And boy, I just love putting a drone up in the sky and just enjoying an afternoon of flying over a forest that I haven't visited before, capturing some beautiful pictures of animals and landscapes out there. And this is one of my favorite things to do. And if you've never flown a drone, it's hard for me to explain the joy that I get out of putting a drone aloft and really just enjoying that remote controlled experience of capturing some great footage. Now, I stayed out of the discussion because I feel that most of it is based on, again, I said hysteria. It's based on rumors and conversations and speculation, and that's not a place I like to live. I really like to live in the fact-based world where I know how much something weighs, I know what it can do, and I understand the technology. So with the speculation that's going on, I thought, you know what, this is not a good thing for me to be talking about. Let me just stay out of it. That all changed this morning. I got up early this morning, and lo and behold, the FAA has now imposed 22 temporary flight restrictions in New Jersey, which means there are 22 locations in the state that I'm not allowed to put a drone up. And that infuriated me. At that point, I said, you know what? I really have to comment on this because I feel like a lot of the population in New Jersey doesn't understand what a drone is or what it does or what its capabilities are. But more importantly, this knee-jerk reaction to penalizing the hobbyist flyer or the commercial flyer in New Jersey over all the speculation and hysteria that's going on around drones, I feel is really unfair. So what I'd like to accomplish in this clip is a couple of things. Number one, I'd like to start out with a basic understanding of what a drone is and why we fly drones. And also talk about the technology and, more importantly, the safety features and limitations of the technology that you as an average consumer and a homeowner should understand so you don't fear those things up in the sky. And I'll talk a little bit about the rules and regulations too as I go through it, because this is one of the most heavily regulated hobbies out there of all the things that you want to experience. And I'll get into some of those in a little bit. I think the FAA has done an outstanding job integrating drones into the national airspace. They've got a massive job when these things started getting smarter and they couldn't ignore it anymore and saying, you know what, we've got to figure out a way to have the drone cohabitate with regular aircraft in that airspace, because it's everybody's airspace, it's all of our airspace, and they put some rules together that really govern the way drones work. And then I'll talk a little bit about the speculation of what's up there, because I'm online. I try not to go online, but I'm online occasionally. And of course, I fall into that same black hole all of us do when you get on TikTok or YouTube. You start watching a video, there's 6 more on the side. You go, oh, that one looks interesting. And you watch that one, you watch this one, and all of a sudden 2 hours have passed. And I've tried to do my research to figure out really what's being photographed and what's being speculated on. Is that something that can be easily identified as something else? It's not Sasquatch. It's not the Loch Ness Monster. It's not a ghost. It's something different, right? It's something that isn't what you think it is. So I'll get into that sort of at the end, because I really think that the vast majority of the sightings, and certainly the ones that I've seen, are absolutely identifiable by other means. I don't think it's anything foreign country related. I don't think it's anything, outer space related. I think most of them are either plane sightings or drone sightings, or maybe even commercial vehicles that are being tested in New Jersey. And there's some reasons for that I'll get to at the end. All right, so let's talk a little bit about drones. I've been flying drones pretty much my whole life, or at least remote control equipment my whole life. I'm an engineer by trade. I love technology like this. I study it, I absorb it, I drink it in. Every day I'm reading articles about advanced technology, how that might show up in current products. So I've been in the drone space for a long time, and I follow all the major developments. I'm lucky to be able to work with a lot of companies that build drones, DJI, Autel, Parrot, a bunch of others. So I get advanced views of a lot of their technology before it hits the market. And I have to tell you that this particular product, this type of product, has matured so fast in the last 10 years that I have a hard time comprehending how that much technology fits into a flying robot like this. So as a consumer, you should understand these are some of the safest devices that are out there today. There's all kinds of protection mechanisms built in around low battery. So if I fly the drone and I'm not paying attention to the battery level, it realizes that I only have enough battery to get back to where I took off, and it takes over control autonomously elevates and flies back and lands where it took off. If something wacky happens in the drone, it's got GPS coordination, it's got no-fly zones built in. If any of that stuff seems a little bit squeaky, the drone actually takes over and says, you know what, I'm noticing something funny here. Let me get back to my takeoff point. So they're incredibly safe. They're also really lightweight. I mean, the bigger ones are a little bit heavier, but this is a wide spacing of drones. This is a drone. This is a Phantom product from DJI that was out probably 10 years ago. I still fly this. It's a wonderful drone. They've gotten smaller and foldable. They've gotten even smaller where you can fit it in your pocket. This is the latest one from DJI. It weighs 135 grams. It'll fly like 7 kilometers away. I'll get into the rule around that in a minute. And there's even ones that you can fold up and put in your pocket. This is a new product from Hover. I fly all of these, and they're a whole lot of fun to fly. And you might be wondering, well, why do you fly so many drones, and what's the big deal around drones? Well, for me, everybody's got a hobby, and you got to find a place in your life where you can go and let the stress and the burden of the world fall off your shoulders. Some people like golf, some people go to the bar and drink a little bit, you go to the horse track. Whatever you do to relax, maybe you're a knitter, whatever you do to relax, that's your thing, I get it. And you need that time to decompress. For me, it's flying drones. Nothing excites me more and brings me more joy than getting up on a Saturday morning with a beautiful sunny day outside, packing up my drone with a few batteries, and going to explore, because it gives me the ability to violate that third dimension, to sort of experience the levitation off of a two-dimensional world where we live every day. So putting a drone up gives me perspective that I can't get normally. I don't fly planes, I can't fly on my own. So putting a drone in the sky allows me to fly over a lake or the bay or over the farms near me or over a forest. And there's nothing as liberating as that for me to explore that area and just have a great time flying over the pine barrens or flying near the shore, capturing some beautiful footage and just really enjoying the day. And I can tell you, when I come home from a long day of flying, I'm the most relaxed that I ever am. And I'm ready to dive back into life and I'm recharged for the next week. So for me, it's the joy of flying that brings me to it. Now, other people use drones for commercial purposes. There are a lot of drone flyers in New Jersey that use these to survey farm fields or property, or they take real estate photos with them, or they're capturing beautiful landscape photos and selling those on a lot of the clip sites. So there's a lot of reasons that drones are up in the air, and there are a lot of drones up in the air because back when this drone came out, it was thousands of dollars. This is $1,000. This is $500. This is $200. This is less. So the price points have changed so much that everybody can find a drone they can fly. You can get on some of the bigger sites today and pick up a drone for $100 and go out and have a lot of fun. So what I'm getting at is a lot of the drones that weren't there 2 years ago or 5 years ago are there today. And I can guarantee you this Christmas, this is one of the most sought after presents that kids are asking for under the Christmas tree. So with this huge wave of people entering the hobby, which I think is a great thing, there's a lot more drones up in the air. And what's interesting is most people don't look up in the sky, especially at night. Now I do because I love the stars. I like looking out at the evening and trying to look at the different clusters of stars up there or the moon or whatever. So I see a lot of things up in the sky, but most people don't look up. So when they hear about drones flying over the property, there's a lot more people looking up than ever looked up before. And of course you're going to see things up there because there's so many airplanes in the sky on any given night that lights are going to be passing over your head. All right, so back to the drones. The FAA stepped in a while back and said, you know what, these need to be somewhat regulated. So we're going to put a set of rules out that all drone pilots have to follow. And if you're a good drone pilot, you're going to follow the rules. Some really basic rules. Drones can fly anywhere from the ground level to 400 feet, what's called AGL or above ground level. Planes, commercial planes, have to stay 500 feet AGL. So there's 100 feet between the planes flying and the drones flying, and that gives us some separation. We're not going to have any kind of collisions with drones and planes. So under 400 feet, you can only fly a drone as far as you can see it. So I've got a visual line of sight requirement that says you can fly it as far as you can see it. For me, being an older guy, probably about 2,000 feet is my max. Even though I can fly 20 kilometers with some of the drones I have, I can't legally fly that far. So if I'm flying beyond visual line of sight, I'm breaking the rule. I can't fly over people. I can't fly over highways. I can't fly near airports. I can't enter NFZs, which are no-fly zones around airports and prisons and nuclear power plants. Matter of fact, some of the DJI drones are so smart that they have geofencing built in, which means the drone knows where those NFZs are. And if I were to try to fly into an NFZ, the drone would stop me. And if I tried to fly in too many times, it would return to the home point. So it's protecting me and protecting the public from me flying into those restricted areas. Not all drones are like that, but DJI was one of the first, and at this point, the only company that built in the geofencing to it. So that eliminates the chances of this drone flying into an NFZ or any place scary, or I should say any place that I could cause some problems. So that's the second thing. So if you follow the rules, you should be in good shape. The truth is, most people that fly a drone, because of the investment and because technical people tend to be a little bit more, I don't know, rule followers, I guess, is what my experience is. And I've flown with hundreds and hundreds of pilots across the country. I find them to be, pilots in general, incredibly responsible people that follow the rules. They're very detail oriented, they're very procedure oriented. So they're not the type of people that are going to put a drone up just to create havoc in a neighborhood and buzz over neighbors' houses. I'm not saying it can't happen. Somebody picks one of these up at the Big Buy store or Big Bus store. They're out there flying it. Maybe it's a kid who's 14, doesn't really understand the rules, and they haven't checked online. So it could happen. But in large part, these are not something that's going to drive you up a tree at night. All right, so then let's talk a little bit about maybe the other things that are up there. So airplanes are flying up there all the time. Now, there are ways to identify an airplane and ways to identify a drone. Airplanes typically have what's called ADS-B on board, which is a broadcast signal that shows their location, their heading, their speed, a lot of good information about the airplane. And you can fire up an application on your phone and identify all the airplanes that are in your airspace that are visible. So the first thing I'd suggest, if you see something up there that you're not sure what it is, get an application for your phone, fire it up, and you'll find that the airplane up there is heading towards Newark Airport or it's heading away from Newark Airport. It gives the tail number in most cases, so you can eliminate those. What about drones? Well, the FAA a couple of years ago looked at drones and said, we need to have some kind of identification for drones like we have for airplanes. Now, let me go back to the airplanes for a second. Not every airplane has that ADS-B. So smaller planes don't have it. Some helicopters don't have it. Some sightseeing planes won't have it. So you're not going to get 100% on the ADS-B, but it'll give you a good idea of what's up there for the larger planes. I've actually used it quite a bit. Matter of fact, the applications from DJI actually have an ADS-B detector in it. So when I'm out flying my drone, it'll let me know that a plane has entered my airspace so I can be a little bit more cautious when I'm flying it. But as far as drones go, the FAA came out with what's called a remote ID rule a couple of years ago, which means all the drones that were manufactured, I'm going to say 2 years ago to now, have to have a beacon inside that broadcasts their location in the sky and information about the drone, more importantly, information about the pilot that's flying the drone. Here's the kicker. It'll not only identify the drone, it'll identify where I'm standing flying the drone. So think about the regulatory controls over my hobby. It now, whoever's got the application on their phone knows that it's a drone flying over their backyard, and they know exactly where I'm standing, which is kind of a dangerous thing, but I haven't had too many encounters where people have been upset. It's easy to explain I'm flying a drone. But if you're seeing something in the sky, download those two applications. Get the one for the flight tracker, get the one for the remote ID, and that'll eliminate pretty much everything you're seeing up in the sky. And just to give you a little anecdotal conversation about it, the other night I got so frustrated because everybody's calling me, asking me questions, gee, Rick, what do you think about these crazy drones up in the sky? That I said, I'm going to go outside and start taking some pictures and see what I can find. I walked out in my backyard. I identified six planes that I could see visibly in the sky that were crisscrossing the sky. One was flying directly over top of me. So I could see how somebody would walk out in their backyard and say, there it is, there's the drone, that's the mysterious drone flying over my property. And the challenge with trying to identify something in the sky is that you really have no perspective when you're looking up. Like, we're terrestrial creatures, we have binocular vision, so we can estimate how far a tree is away from us roughly, but the minute you look up in the sky, you have no point of reference. And you have parallax errors too, where you can't really see things at an angle, things look weird up there. So for you to try to estimate that thing flying above you is at 100 feet, or 1,000 feet, or 30,000 feet, really is impossible. And if it's at 30,000 feet, it's going to look different, right, than it is at 10,000 feet. So seeing something in the sky, it's really hard to tell how big it is, how close it is, how fast it's moving, all the things that people tend to speculate on about it was the size of a car and it was doing 100 miles an hour across my backyard. You can't possibly know that from the ground. The other thing I'll point out, and this is part of why I don't think it's something nefarious up there, is that if I were the bad guy and I were flying a drone at night, why would I put lights on it? Right? That has to be on a plane. So a plane has to have identification lights on both of the wings, red and green. So it's green on the right, red on the left, and a white one on the tail. And that way you can tell which way a plane's heading. But if I were a bad guy, why would I put lights on it? And the second thing, which really confounds me, is let's say, for example, I take the position that they are bad guys up there and they're doing surveillance. Nighttime would be the absolute worst time to do any kind of visual surveillance because as advanced as technology is nowadays, they can't see in the dark. Even the best night vision goggles are a grayscale image at best of what they're looking at. So to get details, of something on the ground from 200, 400 feet up is almost impossible at night. Now, of course, there are other technologies. There's thermal imaging, which is sort of an infrared technology. There's LiDAR, which will give you great topographical information. You can fly night and day. It doesn't rely on visible light. But a drone trying to do any kind of reconnaissance at night is a near impossible thing, especially for drones of this caliber. So you've got lights on it, can't be a bad guy, and you can't really see anything at night. So if you're going to look to surveil something, be out there during the day. Now, people are going to argue there are other things you might be sensing, and that's true. Maybe you're sniffing something, right? I mean, there's some conversations on the internet about we send drones up to check for radioactive sniffing, right? I don't think that's it. Listening, maybe they're listening, they've got high tension microphones on there, high impedance microphones that can hear the whisper at the ground level. Maybe, but I don't see that either happening. And quite honestly, when you look at the state of technology, there's so much reconnaissance going on every day of the week from a satellite perspective that, I mean, years ago, I read an article that we have satellites up that can actually read the label on a golf ball from that orbit, which means they can tell if it's a Titleist or some other brand of golf ball on the fairway from a satellite. And that was a decade or more ago. So can you imagine how much the technology has advanced since then? I don't think you'd need to be flying a drone over somebody's property to do surveillance. And the last thing I'll say is I like to go with the facts. Physics doesn't permit the kind of flights people are talking about. If you had a drone that was the size of a car, you'd have a hard time from a power plant perspective to keep that drone in the air for any length of time. You certainly couldn't do 100 miles an hour with it unless it had a jet engine on the back. No one's complained about hearing jet engines or propellers. So I just, the whole thing to me, I feel at the end of the day is just somebody saw something they couldn't identify, like Sasquatch, like the Loch Ness Monster, like a ghost in the attic, and told their friend about it. Their friend looked up in the sky, saw some blinking lights and said, you know what, I saw it last night as well. They told two friends. They told two friends. The internet is one of those megaphones that you can get on there, you talk about something, 15 people agree with you, they spread it. So I just, at this point, I don't think it's anything nefarious. Now, I could be wrong. Tomorrow morning I could wake up and all of a sudden the governments admitted that they're flying drones over New Jersey to do surveillance. I wouldn't bet on that. I'd bet on it being just a slow time right now for any kind of, again, salacious activity nationally. People want to talk about something. This is like an easy target to talk about. I think it's FOMO, that people that don't see it are wanting to see it, and they're going to go out there and find some way to see it up in the sky, and they're going to talk to their friends about it, and that's how these things get started. I'm hoping it dies down, and that's why I kind of stayed out of the conversation all this time, but it doesn't look like it's gonna. But more importantly, it's gotten to the point now where the FAA stepped in and said, we got to put some temporary flight restrictions in New Jersey to sort of settle this down. And I think it's kind of interesting, too, that those TFRs, they expire on January 17th, which is 3 days before the inauguration. And the only reason I'm saying that timing is interesting is because, as I said earlier, I think once the inauguration's done and the new team comes into White House, then all those political conversations are going to start again. The news cycles are going to be gobbled up by all the infighting for both sides of the political aisle, and we're going to forget all about this. But I had to say something because, again, as a responsible drone flyer and the people I fly with and most of the people that watch this channel, it's frustrating for us that our hobby is being singled out when, honestly, the most responsible flyers up in the sky that aren't official pilots are drone flyers, and somehow we're the bad guys and those TFRs affect us. So that's all I really had today. Now, I will challenge you here at the end, if you've hung in this long. I actually got a phone call the other day from NBC News, and I did an interview with them talking about my thoughts and what these things were. So I've got a direct contact at NBC News. I would challenge anybody out there that's at this point with smoke coming out of their ears going, Rick, you're crazy. I saw it and I've got a picture of it. Send me the picture. I'm going to call your bluff. I'll send it right to the team over at NBC News. I'll have them analyze it. And if they find some validity in that, I'm sure they're going to reach out to you and contact you. But if you're interested about that, I'll probably put a link below to that interview. But at this point, I'd say everybody just needs to calm down and relax, enjoy the holidays, have fun with your family, kiss your kids, and just, get out there and fly. Just stay out of those 22 areas where the TFRs are up. That's all I had for today. So thanks a lot for watching, and happy holidays.